Hello and welcome to this week's Securicy webinar. My name is Russell Radzikowski and I am the Customer Success Manager at Securicy. In last week's webinar, we covered the topic of hardening your Apple laptop or desktop. This week, we are going to cover hardening your Windows laptop or desktop. Hardening your computer is a great step in augmenting your security. It will make your device more secure and minimize the threat of data loss or hacking. Today, we are going to review some of the general best practices when it comes to hardening your Windows computer and review some settings and changes that are quick and easy to make. Following the webinar, we will take a few moments to answer any questions that you may have. So let's get started. On today's agenda, we're going to review the following topics: create a non-admin account, disable automatic login, Screensaver timeout, using a password manager, reviewing your firewall settings, enable full disk encryption, checking for software updates automatically, disable remote access, review your security settings. Create a non-admin account. If you intend to use a company device for non-business purposes or share it with a member of your family, first you should ensure that using a company device for other activities is permitted by your security policies. If it is permitted, it is important to set up a specific account for these activities. Before this happens, make sure to check your company's policy on acceptable use and their device management policy. This will outline what you can and cannot do with the device, as certain organizations will not allow you to use the company computer for personal activities. When you get a new Windows laptop or desktop, the user setup process asks you for your name, a username, and a password, and uses this information to set up your first user account. This first user by default is an administrator, meaning that they will have full access to your device. An administrator account can change or delete any file, install any software, which could be a risk if the software is malicious. A standard user account or non-admin account will have less access and, depending on permissions, can be very restricted. By default, they can only use, change, and create files in their home directory, access folders on shared volumes. Depending on permissions, they can sometimes change non-secure preferences under settings. Even though a standard account or non-admin account is more limited, it can be useful for basic computer activity, such as browsing the web or word processing. Disable automatic login. By default, some Windows operating systems are set up to log in automatically at startup. While this might not be an issue with a personal device, a company device should be set to prompt for a login. An automatic login, if left on by default, would allow anyone who finds your computer to simply turn it on and have full access to your device. To change this setting, go to the User Accounts panel of the control panel and check the Users must enter a username and password to use this computer option, and click Apply. Once you restart your computer, you will now be prompted for a password when it turns on. Screensaver timeout. Setting your display to timeout is a great way to lessen the chances of someone accessing your device if it is left unattended. The inactivity timeout is a configurable period of time during which a user can be inactive. After this period of time, the device is locked and will require a password to log back in. Changing this setting will reduce the chances of anyone accessing your device if you step away from it for a moment and forget to lock or close your screen. Not only does it increase the security of your device, but can help increase battery life as well on a laptop. The timeout should be set according to the policy of your organization. To enable Screensaver timeout, click on the Windows key and select Settings. Click on Personalization. Select Lock Screen on the left side panel. Click Screensaver Settings. Set wait time according to your display off in power option, and check on Resume Display Logon screen. Then click OK. Your screensaver will now be prompted and will lock out after a period of time. Use a password manager. Every organization should have a password policy, and when creating your account, you should always follow this policy. It will ensure you're using at least the minimum requirements as outlined by your organization. Depending on the requirements and the number of applications, you may have a large number of complex passwords to remember. Passwords should never be written down and should be updated frequently. This can make remembering a number of passwords very difficult. Using a password manager allows for the creation of complex, unique passwords so they are more difficult to crack, and creates an encrypted way to store them so the process of entering them can become automated. There are a number of great tools out there for password managers. No matter your needs, there should be one that fits your organization. As well with using a password manager, two-factor authentication should be used whenever possible on all accounts that support it. Along with using a password manager to harden your password, two-factor authentication adds an extra level of security to all your accounts. Turn on your firewall. Many users are interested in enabling or disabling their Windows firewall for various reasons. Some users want to utilize a different firewall, and some may have turned theirs off by accident. Microsoft Windows 8 and Windows 10 both come with a pre-installed firewall utility, although it may be disabled by default. Here are some steps to enable the Windows firewall. Click on the Start menu or hit the Windows key, open the Control panel, click on System and Security, click on Windows Firewall. If the Windows Firewall is disabled, the state will be off. To turn it on, in the left navigation pane, click on Turn Windows Firewall on or off. In the Custom section, in the Customize Settings window, turn on Windows Firewall and click OK. Enable full disk encryption. A common security practice is the encryption of important data files in folders for an additional layer of protection. By doing this, even if your device is stolen, the thieves will not be able to access your data. Encryption is key to making sure that your data is protected. The encryption process can vary between systems and devices, and today we're going to cover how to do this in Windows 8 and Windows 10 using BitLocker. BitLocker is Microsoft's proprietary full disk encryption software, and following these simple steps will make sure your data is safe and protected. Locate your hard drive that you want to encrypt under this PC in Windows Explorer. Right-click the targeted drive and choose Turn on BitLocker. Choose Enter a password. Enter a secure password. Choose How to enable your recovery key, which you'll use in case you ever forget your password. You can print this key, save it as a file to your hard drive, save it on a USB stick, or save it to your Windows account. Choose Encrypt Entire Drive. This is a more secure option that encrypts files that have been marked for deletion but haven't yet been overwritten. Unless you need your drive to be compatible with older Windows machines, choose New Encryption Mode. Click Start Encrypting to begin the encryption process. This will require a restart if you were encrypting your boot drive. The encryption may take some time depending on the size of your drive, but it will run in the background and you'll still be able to use your computer while it runs. You might be asking yourself, but if I have a strong password and it's prompting me on login to use it, why should I do this? The reason that you should enable this feature on your Windows devices is if your device is stolen or lost, without hard drive encryption, anyone can gain access to your data by simply pulling your hard drive and plugging it into another machine. If your device is encrypted, once it is shut down, the hard drive is encrypted and locked up. Only when an authorized user turns the Windows device on and logs in are they able to unencrypt the contents of that drive. Check for software updates automatically. The software on your devices, whether the operating system or third-party applications, should be updated as often as possible. While some organizations may have the ability to push updates remotely or from a server environment, it may not be possible for all companies. Windows has a built-in software update tool, Windows Update. To enable this, tap or click the Start button, followed by clicking on Settings. From Settings, tap or click on Update and Security. Choose Windows Update from the menu on the left, assuming it's not already selected. Click on the Advanced Options link on the right-hand side, which will open a window titled Choose How Updates are Installed. Select Automatic, which is the recommended setting from the dropdown. Check Give Me Updates for other Microsoft products while I update Windows. This will install any updates for other Microsoft products, such as Windows Office or Microsoft Office. And do not check the Defer Upgrades option. This will allow for downloads to proceed as soon as they are available and will ensure that any security patches are installed without delay. Disable remote access. Windows Remote Desktop allows you or others to connect to your computer remotely over a network connection, effectively accessing everything on your computer as if they were directly connected to it. Unfortunately, Remote Desktop can be exploited by hackers to gain control of remote systems and install malware or steal personal information. It's a good idea to keep the feature turned off unless you actively need it, and it is not enabled by default. Once enabled, however, it is easy to disable. Windows 10 comes with Remote Desktop already installed, so you don't have to have it explicitly installed. Once installed and set up, disabling it is similar to previous versions of Windows, and you can use the Cortana search box or hit the Windows key and enter remote settings. Select Allow Remote Access to your computer. This may seem a little counterintuitive, but this actually opens the control panel dialog for the remote systems property. Check Don't Allow Remote Connections to this computer. This will disable remote access. Finally, reviewing your security settings. What applications are you sharing your personal location with? What do the apps you have installed have access to on your device? If you are unsure or want to prevent location or other access, you need to review your security and privacy settings. To do this, click Start and press the Windows key, select Settings, and then select Privacy. An example would be Cortana, the Windows 10 virtual assistant. In order to be the best virtual assistant possible, she'll ask you when you're setting up your computer if she can get to know you through the way you interact with your device. Namely, this is your speech, handwriting, and typing patterns. The Getting to Know You feature will also allow Windows 10 to collect other information about you, including your calendar, contacts, location, and browsing history, according to Microsoft's privacy statement. If you're using a mobile device, such as a tablet or a laptop, there are plenty of times when allowing Windows 10 and third-party apps to access your location is convenient, but that doesn't mean that you should leave your location switched on at all times. When your location is switched on, Windows 10 stores your device's location for up to 24 hours and allows apps with permission to access that data. So you can turn these settings off under Privacy by going to, again, clicking on the Start menu, selecting Settings, and clicking Privacy. If you turn location off, apps that use your location will not be able to find you. However, in most of these applications, you can manually set a default location that the apps can use as a stand-in. Thanks for joining us on this week's webinar. Now we can review any questions you might have. While we're waiting for the questions to come in, I just wanted to tell you about next week's topic. The webinar will cover the basics of the understanding and best practices on preventing phishing and social engineering. Let's review a couple questions that we got. Do we have to make all these changes? This will depend on your organization and their policies. Some organizations have the ability, especially with Windows, to push remote updates using the Windows Server infrastructure. So some of these changes might occur automatically, but you should follow best practices when it comes to your company and follow their policy. Today, we cover best practices and recommendations based on Securicy's policies. Will any of these changes affect performance? All these changes should not affect your performance by any margin. The one where you could possibly see a little change in performance would be the BitLocker encryption of your hard drive. This may make the login process or the booting process of your computer slightly slower, as you'll have to enter a password. But again, it shouldn't be a noticeable difference. What is the best password manager? There's many different products available on the market. You should always kind of go through a review process when looking at software to make sure that it meets your needs and it is a secure software from a reputable company. Many password managers have additional features, so it's worthwhile to investigate those features to see if they can be of some use to your company. Such things as like sharing a password among team members, a one-to-many share is possible on certain password managers. One common example that we see a lot in the industry is LastPass, and we use it here in our office. It looks like that might be it for questions. Again, thank you very much for joining us. Next week's webinar will cover the understanding and best practices on preventing phishing and social engineering. Thank you very much and have a great day.